Hello, you wonderful people of the internet. I am Justin, also known as the Cinemaverick, and today I'm going to be going over the next film in my PT Ander-Thon, and that is PTA's third feature film, which is called Magnolia. And this is a film from 1999. Anderson was really given free reign by the studio at this point, New Line Cinema, because of the success of Boogie Nights, and he was really wanted to do something that he found very intimate, and so he started writing the story kind of during the production of Boogie Nights, and well, that story kind of ended up expanding layer upon layer upon layer, and soon he realized that maybe it wasn't going to be as small scale as he was hoping, and so we got probably his most sprawling ensemble piece to date, and that uh, it's even maybe more sprawling than Boogie Nights was. And really the other thing was that it was very influenced by the music of Amy Mann, who was a close friend of Anderson's in the 90s and even to this day, I believe. So that was the kind of the influence, and it tells many different stories. It's set in the San Fernando Valley, which at this point should be pretty familiar to all of us. That's where he grew up. That's where he likes setting a lot of his movies. And it really is it's a bunch of different people, and they sort of come together in some ways, in some ways literally, in terms of interacting with one another. Some people are related by blood, but what I really think Anderson does so well in this movie is I love the way he weaves together these characters, not just in their literal interaction, but thematically. To see certain characters going through very similar struggles under very different circumstances. And you'll see certain shots will recall other shots, and you'll see one character will be going through a very similar situation to another. You see this particularly with the Tom Cruise character. Tom Cruise plays this great, totally like disgustingly misogynistic self-help guru whose motto is respect the cock, tame the cunt. His words, not mine. So that, just to give you an idea of what kind of self-help this guy is distributing here. And I love how Anderson puts him like in this under this spotlight, because he gives these seminars, and that scene is very similar to a scene with another character who's like this quiz show kid, on this game show called What Do Kids Know, which pits kids against adults. Which again, that concept ties into this idea, because you have so many fathers and sons, fathers and daughters, mothers and sons, mothers and daughters, interacting with one another and competing in some fashion. But I love how he puts the kid. The kid is under the spotlight literally, and while he doesn't have a similar mission to the Tom Cruise character, but he is going through a similar situation in terms of a realization that I don't want to get into. But I love how Anderson is able to do that, and I love I love how he'll cut from one character's face to another, so that we can contextualize that person's situation in relation to another. Now this is sounding very similar, I think, to Anderson's not first short film, his second short film, which I talked about already, Cigarettes and Coffee, which I believe was a big influence on this. The difference here, though, is that I think one of the key themes in this movie is redemption, regret and redemption. And I think in Cigarettes and Coffee we saw that if you made too big a mistake, you were gonna have there was basically nothing you could do. You had already set events in motion, and things are not going to turn out well, and you just kind of have to accept that. And here we're seeing that, yeah, that does happen, but there is capacity for redemption, but that doesn't mean that those things somehow didn't happen, that everything's going to be okay now. And what I think is fascinating is that I think some of these characters, that's what they maybe what they want ideally, but it's not. Anderson's not going to let them get it entirely. So I really I really am fascinated by that idea of these characters seeking redemption, seeking reconciliation after these huge rifts that happen, and not achieving it entirely, achieving it somewhat. So really, I think speaks to the complexity of these characters and of the problems that they have. And it's also a very it's very a meta, everything that's happening. And I mean that. I mean, we learn pretty much from the opening narration, in which we get these three stories that are in no way literally tied to the events in the movie. They're just kind of like there as sort of like a prologue, and they usually involve coincidence, but they also speak, I think, to larger things. Like, it's not just the fact that coincidence happens; it's what does the coincidence tell us about these people and the world and the interactions that these people have had with one another. At one point, you have the Philip Seymour Hoffman plays a male nurse who's taking care of this elderly man played by Jason Robards, who has cancer and is dying, and basically is trying to reach out to his son, who's the Tom Cruise character, and just getting this. And saying to the guy on the phone, because he's trying to reach the Tom Cruise character, these really convoluted means, and telling the person on the phone, like, all right, this is the scene of the movie where you help me out. You can't get more obviously meta than that. And I think Anderson really is trying to blur the lines between reality and movies, and what do we choose to believe in movies, and is that something because maybe it's something we want out of life, with the realization that maybe life doesn't work that way, but still wanting that and still believing that there's a possibility, there's just the slightest possibility that what happens in movies is true to what happens in life because it comes from life. I think that some of these stories work better than others. I think one of my favorites is there's a romance between Melora Walters, who plays a coke addict who's estranged from her father, who's actually the game show host in the game show, and she has a sort of romantic relationship with John C. Reilly, who's playing this kind of bumbling cop who's not very well respected on his force, and those two souls kind of like coming together and fearing that the other is going to reject them once they find out who they really are underneath this facade that they've created. I think that story works really well, and I think it works well. I think it ties into the other characters' stories as well, because so many of these characters have been keeping up this facade for so long, and now are realizing that they can't maintain it any longer. There's other stories. There's a story with William H. Macy, who plays this former quiz show kid, who was like this child genius, who is now like very basically. He just lost his job in an electronics store. He's not doing very well. And there's a whole thing where he's trying to... He has a crush on a bartender, and he thinks because the bartender has braces, that if he gets braces, that will somehow work out. And that story doesn't really work as well for me. Certain things involved with his story, I think, tie in, but that aspect of it I thought was even... I understand we're supposed to get the feeling that this is a very desperate character, but that seemed desperate even by the standards of this character. I mean, I can buy William Macy wanting to kidnap his wife in Fargo better than I can believe this situation here. But as you might expect, so I do think this film is maybe ambitious to a fault. Which is something you could say maybe about Anderson's work in general, at least certain films. But I respect that, just that the desire to go there. I mean, there's something, I don't want to get into what it is because people who have seen the movie know there's something that happens very late in the film, pretty much the climax of the movie, that will pretty much seems like it's out of left field, but I think does relate in many ways, and maybe not on a literal level, but on a metaphorical level, and just on an emotional level. I can't reveal what it is, but it's great. I think if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Um, but yeah, this, like I said, this is a very worthy entry in the Anderson canon. I was enthralled for the entire running time, which I can't say is always true of 3 hour plus movies. Uh, the cast here is great, as you might expect. You see the Anderson regulars: Julianne Moore, Philip Baker Hall, Philip Seymour Hoffman. They're all back and just really and playing very different characters, I think, from what we've seen them play. So I really got to give Anderson credit for that. So that's sort of my very haphazard take on Magnolia. It's worth seeing. It's highly worth seeing. I highly recommend it. I might like Boogie Nights a little bit better. I feel like that holds together a little bit better, and I found those characters a little bit more complete than the ones we see here. But, I still highly recommend it. So that's Magnolia. I think my next vlog is either going to be on, we'll see, it might be on some of the shorts that Anderson directed, like he did something for SNL. I might just go into Punch Drunk Love. We'll see. We'll see if Fanatic, which is the SNL sketch, is worth talking about. So yeah, that will be next. Either the SNL sketch, possibly Punch Drunk Love, maybe both. Who knows? So I thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.